And we're live.
Hello.
Hello.
La la la.
Hello.
Hi, all. Welcome.
Look who we've got here
we
today.
have Lou. It's Monday night generational change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and yeah, it's a party, and we're
early. We're early.
Yes, we are, and we are, of course, not normally on at this time, but because our good friend, hey Tony, because our good friend Jordan Chariton of Status Coup is going to be coming on here shortly. I believe he's wrapping up his live stream.
He does the early bird.
Yes,
Jordan's about the early bird.
Jordan's about too good for the early bird. Smash the like button. Get this out there to as many people as you can. Don't know if our new thumbnail is going to make a difference in terms of live viewers. We'll see.
Probably. Well, but then we're also doing that with this other variable of a different time, which is not good to change to.
Yes, well, people don't necessarily anticipate that, but I would assume that some people.
So, what I mean, we have things we need to talk about.
We do.
I don't normally like to get involved in a lot of the stupid nonsense that goes on, but yet I feel the need to get involved in that lady basketball thing.
So we're gonna go there.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you're planning on talking about, like with Jordan.
Fine.
I mean, I don't know much about anything. I know that the LSU team won, and it's a women's thing, and it was like the biggest
first national championship ever,
and it was
Angel
like the
Reese.
Biggest watched for a women's championship
in 15 years, any men's or women's. Apparently, this thing like really broke.
Okay,
some
and yet our women in places where they can get paid don't get paid, and in places where it's unpaid still don't get the same recognition, and blah 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 blah. But so apparently there was a thing that happened. A thing. And I'm sitting here and figuring, I wonder what she did. Like I figured, like I assumed that she flipped her a bird, which I still wouldn't have necessarily cared about either. But no, she didn't do anything that was remotely affected. Like when I read about what it was she did, the fact that anybody gave this girl a hard time for that needs their ass kicked. Like seriously.
So for anybody who has been paying attention or even cares about women's basketball, I happen to just care about basketball.
I don't.
Caitlin Clark is considered another one of the great White Hope basketball players, only she is legitimate. She is a fantastic ball player and has been getting rave reviews in terms of her play throughout the NCAA women's tournament. And she had an all-time performance of, I think, like 40 points in the first Final Fours in the semifinal game, which they won against South Carolina. And then they got to the championship game against LSU, and LSU's best player, Angel Reese, was somebody who really put on a dazzling performance in her own right, and they ended up winning the national championship for the first time in the school's history. In addition to that, set an all-time scoring record for a women's game with 102 points. That's also very impressive in its own right. But the thing that, of course, is going to be talked about has nothing to do with the game, nothing to do with what actually was accomplished on the court. It has to do with whether or not this is considered taunting or classless behavior. So we will show you guys right now. Exactly.
You have the exact part that they were saying, because I saw this and I don't get
what everybody was going bananas about.
Okay, guys.
And Angel Reese knows
I don't.
the ring is coming.
I don't see the problem with that. I don't see the problem.
Yeah.
That's athletes being athletes. She was pointing at the ring finger like we're going to get the championship. Isn't that, I'm sorry, that to me seems like totally acceptable, sportsmanlike kind of baiting. And I honestly, nobody would be saying this. I have never heard this kind of thing mentioned with men's sports unless there's physical violence.
It's trash talking is what it is.
Yeah, well, good. But I don't, honestly, I originally thought, well, she must have done something obscene or whatever. No. She was referencing that she doesn't want to see you and you're in there. That's how
the only thing
that's
the only
ridiculous.
Thing that Angel Reese did that I didn't like was that there were a couple of instances where she basically looked like she was stalking Caitlin. Like she was trying to, like follow her around and like get in her face. So like, yeah. And she got a technical foul for that. But the idea that what she did was so, oh my God, what she did was so terrible.
I don't know anything about the other stuff. I am specifically referencing her doing that gesture. And I don't care. I don't need to know that is so benign that the nuance and the context is irrelevant to me. That's how it's so benign that quite honestly, everything that happened before doesn't even matter. I don't understand what the big deal is. That to me is athletes being athletes. And I cannot stand this idea that female athletes are not just treated differently, but like it reminds me of League of Their Own when they wanted them to wear skirts. You know,
if
like
you
they're
can't play in this, I got a whole bunch of ladies.
right. Like the girls had to play in a dress. This is the same thing to me. Because nobody would ever say. I have been to a lot of college sporting things when I was in college and post college. I see how people talk to each other, both on the field, on the court. Nobody would bring this up if this was boys. Sorry, they wouldn't even be talking about it. And the fact that anybody referred to her as classless or trash is they are classless and trash. This to me just looks like sporty stuff. Your sporty games.
We're happy to help you, Rufio. We're glad to have you here. What I will say is that there was also a compilation video that, of course, was put out today that was really solid, that showed all of the wonderful taunting that has gone on in the NBA and college basketball. It's not so much men's college basketball, but if you look at what goes on in the NBA all the time, with the finger pointing and the touching and the fisticuffs and all that, I mean, look, the fact is she got in the face of a superstar basketball player who was doing this herself in other games.
She had done it to other people. Right. So now, of course, there's going to be the people that make it a race thing, which it is that too. There's definitely an intersectionality here.
Yeah, for some.
And there's people that are making it like, well, when the white player has done those things, nobody's called her out on it. And now this girl's doing it and we're calling her out. Absolutely. And if that's the case, that's the case. I can't speak as to any of that. I don't know any of that. All I know is that if that is what people are offended by, sports are not for you. I'm sorry, but it's like, if that kind of behavior offends you, just go watch something else. Seriously, go watch HGTV, the cooking channel. Sports is not for you. You will not survive sports in this world if that is something that is so offensive to you. I don't even know how to wrap my head around it. First of all, she's adorable. So I don't know. And anything she did, she's adorable. She's cute girl. And just
6'3".
Whatever. She's cute. So she's when you're standing around tall people, you don't look tall. But so I don't see anything that she did. I so am hopeful. If I do not apologize for that, ever apologize for it. Like, I would sooner die than apologize for something like that if I were her. Yeah. I would dig are you kidding me? She didn't do anything wrong. I can't believe we're even talking about it. But anyway, I had to, of course, hear that apparently Keith Olbermann had a position on it for something, as if his opinion matters in the past 30 years.
So we're gonna get into this because there's no way we can. He is just he
called her a
effing
idiot. This girl
for doing that.
So Keith Olbermann, a grown ass man.
A man-child. He has a reputation for a man-child that ever was.
This man is calling this girl, who, by the way, Keith, their brains aren't fully formed yet. So we do expect young people to do some stupid stuff. But this doesn't even qualify. I find him he is insufferable. Please do not make me watch him live.
Okay, so
I cannot.
Doesn't matter the gender, the sport, the background. You're seconds away from a championship and you do something like this and overshadow all the good, mindless, classless. And what kind of coach does this team have?
A winning one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they won the national championship. I'd say that's pretty good.
Would anybody have ever said, did he ever say this about Bobby Knight? Did he talk shit about what kind of coach was Bobby Knight for being so offensive?
He got absolutely destroyed by a lot of people, including Shaq. Shaq came out and was like, shut your dumbass mouth.
Seriously.
And so then Olbermann has to be brought to heel ever so slightly, saying, I apologize for being uninformed last night about the backstory on this. I don't follow hoops, college or pro, men or women. This is a guy who worked for SportsCenter for how many years covering sports? He doesn't follow sport.
Then don't comment on it.
I had no idea about Clark. Both were wrong. This is what I said in today's countdown. No one cares what you said in today's countdown podcast. No one should care what Keith Olbermann had to say.
Nobody's cared what Keith Olbermann had to say since Rachel Maddow was somewhat decent. Same time frame. They were on back to back.
Carla, I remember at the time during the when the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl back in 2014. Richard Sherman, who I don't particularly care for, he's got a big mouth and was basically talking a lot of smack towards Michael Crabtree of the 49ers. But to understand that there is an intense rivalry between the Seahawks and the 49ers, and that this was moments after the Seahawks won their first ever NFC championship.
Was there
and
fighting?
We're going to no.
Oh.
He was interviewed by Aaron Andrews, and Aaron Andrews did not like his sort of jive talking. It made her physically uncomfortable, that she didn't want to hear him doing his thing, basically talking smack to Michael Crabtree after the game.
Who is this a woman sport commentator?
You don't know who Aaron Andrews is?
No, and nor do I want to. I take
anyway.
issue. I'll get on that in a second.
Yeah.
I cannot deal with women like that.
Yeah, it was, well.
Then do not cover sports.
I can't help myself, but I feel like I have to put this up here because I've been wanting to go after Olbermann for the
Oh my God, you're going to
time
make me watch this.
because I'm so effing tired of this son of a bitch.
This is the same thing. I definitely am much more of a fan of any type of sports commentators that have played the sport on which they're commentating. That is something that I just think is sort of should be a prerequisite in a lot of cases because you're making a lot of like comments, although nowadays the people that are making the comments are being told what to say anyway. So I don't know that they need to use their own judgment.
Well, it's also trying to make themselves look like they're really,
I never like the idea of people who haven't played a sport commenting on that sport. Like it's just not something that I've ever liked. But when you have a commentator that's going to play somehow some sort of like, Me Too offense when covering the NFL, you need a different job.
Oh, absolutely.
You will not survive sports.
Yeah.
And it's not like anybody did anything to her. That would be different. That would be different if somebody did something to her. Let me be very clear. If somebody was like abusive to her, but just her being offended by how they talk to each other, she will not survive this industry.
Okay, so you people need to all understand exactly who Keith Olbermann is because he's absolutely nuts, and I do not
hope so bad.
Well, but Trump broke his brain.
Well, and same as Maddow. The two of them went friggin' they unwired.
You know what? I'm not even going to play the whole. I'm just going to play this short little clip here,
Please.
just so you get an idea of exactly how nuts this.
Yeah, don't make me
because
listen.
It's a short video.
Okay.
But this is basically Keith Olbermann's brain being broken and acting a fool, as I would say, because that's what he was doing. He's acting a fool, talking about Russia, and Trump is controlled by Russia. Blah, 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 blah. Here we go.
The nation and all of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum. Russian scum. Russian scum. Russian scum.
When did Olbermann? That's almost like. He sounds like he's like Alex Jones-like. Almost.
He is Alex Jones-like.
But
here's the thing.
Crazy.
Here's the thing about Keith Olbermann that you have to remember. He has had a reputation for years of being very difficult to work with, very nasty to people in general, very nasty to women, in particular women that he's dated. He's got a really bad reputation across the board, and yet somehow always keeps getting hired. I often wonder why.
And this is someone calling someone classless and trashy. This is someone referring to somebody's class. This is like Debbie being the arbiter of integrity. I don't understand this.
Who's here?
All right. So what else did you want to say about Olbermann other than he?
I just wanted to bring our third member of the team, the third band member, into the studio for a short while. Who's a happy girl?
All right. Do the show.
Yes. So everybody has to get a chance to see that. Yeah. I mean, I just think, Olbermann is somebody who has spent the better part of what I guess now is about 7 years, maybe more, just bitching and complaining about Trump.
Well, he wasn't good before that too. Like it was a long time.
No, but there's this class of liberal, especially one who's in the upper echelon of society. Of course, Olbermann is a New Yorker and all the, every stereotype you can think of. Basically spent the better part of the last several years just talking about how Trump is a Russian agent.
Yeah, it's crazy
so
talk.
Ridiculous. And then, of course, when he ends up sticking his nose into stuff like this, that's out of that Russia nonsense, ultra-liberal resistance bubble, then the general public gets to see what this guy's really all about. And they're like, this freaking lunatic?
Other than a couple of meaningless elitist talking heads, was there anyone else that was like critical of her? Like, were there any normal people? Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. He's not a sociopath. That's nice. What was like the general consensus among anybody who has any sense of, common sense? You know, I would think that regular people would not have been offended by that in the least bit.
Yeah, you would think that as well, but I think
he wasn't white. He's not white. He's over there. He's not white. He's Thurgood Marshall.
Who's talking about them?
Mario's talking about that picture that used to be behind us. That picture.
No,
And
it's Thurgood Marshall.
He's not white.
No, he's black.
It's a black and white picture.
Yes, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
And so let me see.
And I know we had some other fun things we were going to talk about besides that. We have to also talk about another indicator of crazy.
Well, let's see how long it's going to be before Jordan gets in.
Because this is not cool, because we would never be sitting here this early.
No.
We're only sitting here this early because he's coming on. So
well, I want to make sure if he's coming on in a moment or not. If he isn't, then I don't want to start another segment, which we could do. But if he says he'll be 10 minutes, let's say. And of course, we have a couple of other.
We have things to talk about.
We do. Obviously, we could talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene going on 60 Minutes.
With that. Okay, and you know what? I would suggest that everybody check out David Dole. Then I can hear whatever that is you're listening to. Yeah. I would suggest everybody check out David Dole's, what he just did a critique of. It wasn't so much of Marjorie Taylor Greene as much as it is of the 60 Minutes interviewer that didn't hold her accountable for any of her crazy. It's like there is no decent journalism on Main Street. None. Like, this is like ridiculous. And so David did a really good job. The Rational National, for people who aren't aware, covering this. But this interview is disturbing mostly for that reason. We know what kind of crazy this woman is. She is one of the more ignorant people I've ever seen with a platform of her size. But yet the problem is that here she is at 60 Minutes, and they spend time with her at the gym and watching her do her workout and talk about her CrossFit instead of talking about she is this, and this. Then she brings something up where she could be challenged, and they don't challenge her.
Yeah, the problem with Marjorie is not the fact that she's absolutely, off the deep end. It's the fact that, much like the social media posts we put out, the reason why somebody like Marjorie is as popular as she is because the economy works for a very slim few. And for the many, she is seen as retribution. She is seen as somebody who, like Trump, is another Molotov cocktail that is going to deliver on basically tearing the system down. They see her as somebody who's so out of control that she's likely to do something so crazy.
Like Trump.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. When people are given no direction, they're going to follow the loudest voice in the room. And even if that voice is crazy and ignorant, she is, you know what? There's times when I hear her and I think, could she really be this ignorant? Because it isn't a matter of stupid or smart. It really isn't. It's just, she says things that are just factually incorrect. So she's just completely unaware. Or is she just such a blatant liar grifter that this is a shtick and she doesn't believe what she's saying? And I go back and forth on that. I don't know. But, I don't think she's unhinged. I think she's calculating. But or maybe she's purposefully misinformed.
No, I think she's purposely, I think she is very calculating. Yeah. I think she's actually very smart. She knows exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly what audiences she needs to play to. But the difference is that somebody like her is willing to do the things on her side of the aisle that somebody like AOC is not willing to do on her side of the aisle.
Yeah.
She's willing to be that difficult person.
She's willing to be disliked.
Yes. Before we bring in Jordan, we're just going to run this very quick clip
of the
interview that happened.
Complimenting her. Let me be clear.
I'm not complimenting her either.
I think
she's dangerous.
Well, and don't forget, guys, she is in the CUNT club at Generational Change.
Oh. Sorry, guys. Peter is still a little wet behind the ears with his ability to do tech all the time, and that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, you guys have to hear this person. Just this part.
The Democrats are a party of pedophiles.
I would definitely say so. They support grooming children.
They are not pedophiles. Why would you say that?
Democrats support, even Joe Biden, the president himself, supports children being sexualized and having transgender surgeries. Sexualizing children is what pedophiles do to children.
Okay.
Honestly do not care one iota what Victor Shi has to say, because he is another young Democrat establishment hack who is paid to basically just champion the blue team and not worry at all about what they do wrong. So those opinions are completely useless.
But why would you do a puff piece on Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because that's what that is.
It
That's
did
a puff
seem
piece.
like it. I mean, I watched the whole
it
thing
is.
last night.
She went with her to the gym.
Correct.
That's a puff piece.
Yeah,
it's like that
basically
is
trying to
not
make her-
somebody that needs that kind of, publicity.
Trying to make her in a positive light. But the whole crux of the interview is never addressing the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene, much like our Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, engages in insider trading. She does it too, and she acts like she's Miss Innocent. That's the difference between somebody like her and a representative like Thomas Massey. Somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene wants you to believe that she's not a crooked F. I'm not going to curse. Let's not demonetize herself.
I
yet.
can't. We're never making it all the way through the show anyway.
I don't think it's possible.
I
But
don't know that I
nevertheless,
can.
that is not somebody who you would ever be taking advice from or should ever be listening to. However, the one thing I will say for those people who don't understand how somebody like Trump is as popular as he is, or how somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene is as popular as she is, when the economic system is broken beyond repair at this point, you're going to have people like her that are going to rise through the ranks because she's going to say the types of things that are going to rile people up.
Because people are angry and they like to direct it where they feel like they can be effective, and you're most effective kicking down.
And you can't say that people don't have a right to be angry. Meanwhile, over the course of this interview, they took the interview was done at her palatial, I would say it's a mansion, like borderline mansion that she lives in on 10 acres of land in northern Georgia. I mean,
that's neither here nor there. The fact that whoever that is, Leslie Stahl, whatever, that was her type of interview. I mean, this is why, when we were talking about why I was sad about the end of Barbara Walters wouldn't have let that go.
No, but then again, Barbara Walters probably wouldn't have interviewed her.
No, probably not. Because as David Dole said, and again, he did a good segment on this, guys, it's why are we laundering her reputation? This is not helpful in any way. And again, I don't know whether she's purposefully malicious, purposefully willfully ignorant. I don't know. But she just sits there and says things that are ludicrous. And why would you give that a platform? She already has one. She's a congressperson. You don't need to give her a platform.
Well, that being said, let's make it happen. You know him from Status Coup News. He is a good friend and also somebody who does real news. Sorry, guys. That's, kind of a touchy subject these days. People calling people so-called journalists.
Well, I now am referring to my representative as my so-called congresswoman.
Yeah, well, or so-called public servant, because she is anything but.
So-called
Jordan
rep.
Chariton, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Jordan, what's going on?
Just living the newborn father life, trying to keep the engines going at Status Coup. Possibly working on a new documentary. And still trying to get a book published. So quite a lot going on.
Well, if you figure out how to get a book published, let me know if you have any good contacts.
Well, I did get an offer from 2 smaller publishers, but I'm holding out to try and get a bigger publisher because the topic is the Flint water cover up. And, for better or worse, I do want and need a bigger name publisher because I might as well self-publish it if I'm going to go with a small publisher. So
we're still talking about Flint, and now with East Palestine, I feel like it's Groundhog Day, and it's the same kind of thing, the same lies, the same bullshit, the same cover-up. And to me, the common denominator is that so long as any entity that has a political or a for-profit motive, until an entity without one of those things is telling you that something is safe or that something is okay or that something is clean, then it isn't.
Yeah, it's also Groundhog's Day in terms of, if you think about with Flint, if you remember back, they covered it. The media covered it in 2016 for like a week, maybe 2 weeks. Rachel Maddow was there, did a town hall. And then immediately they went back to Trump 24/7. And now 7 years later, the media covered, I think they covered East Palestine maybe for a week and a half, 2 weeks. And now they've abandoned that and going back to Trump. Yeah, he's being indicted, so it's a little bit different. But even before that, they stopped covering East Palestine to kind of do the 2024 horse race, and Republicans, DeSantis versus Trump, and the calm before the indictment. So it's just a total, very emblematic and a real representation of our media chooses to cover things that I think in other countries would be covered for a lot longer and a lot more seriously. But yeah, I mean, just you don't need to be a chemist or an expert or a journalist to just look at that petrochemical mushroom cloud and realize that doesn't just descend onto the land, frankly, far further than East Palestine. I think the media and the government have done a good job of making it seem that it's only affecting this 1 to 2 miles. But from the messages I've been getting, I think it's affecting a lot further than that. But yeah, I mean, the EPA, the state EPA, Norfolk Southern, magically their tests show absolutely nothing wrong, yet residents of all ages are getting nosebleeds, diarrhea, nausea, dizziness. Residents have described it as feeling drunk, like you're under the influence when you're in town long enough. Chemical bronchitis was diagnosed for a couple residents I've talked to. Chemical burns, they're not really rashes, they're chemical burns. Some residents have shown me pictures, and it's awful. And this is not like stuff that was acute for a few days, but then went away. There's residents still having these issues. And the residents who have been lucky enough to leave town, whether it be in hotels or Airbnbs or going to stay with family out of town, their symptoms clear up. But as soon as they come back, because you got to come back to your house, for mail and whatever other, some residents have said, I can't be in my house for longer than 15 minutes because it reeks. And they get the headaches and burning eyes. Lewis, who's a reporter with Status Coup and has been there twice already, the last trip, he was saying he had to leave town one day because he was having such a headache and burning eyes. So that sounds like a really perilous disaster to me if people are still there. Bob Bocock, who's Erin Brockovich's environmental partner, basically told us that they're being recontaminated every day because they're aerating the contaminants out of the water and it's going into the air and then into the soil. So it's completely backwards. I don't want to be, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this is not my first rodeo. I do not trust the EPA because I know that they did really nefarious things in Flint. I know they looked the other way when they knew that the state of Michigan Environmental Department was doing nefarious things when it comes to the lead testing. And I see a lot of the same things happening here. Obviously, different igniting incident, Flint to East Palestine, but it's basically the same playbook. And in a meeting last week, the EPA kind of let slip that they're making decisions to avoid getting lawsuits from Norfolk Southern. So the EPA is making health decisions and soil remove decisions based on worries about the company that poisoned the community suing them. So it's a hot mess. And we're doing our best to keep it in the news. But unfortunately, us and maybe another outlet or two are covering it. Other than that, it's really been relegated to, updates here and there.
It's absurd. This town's ruined. Like, I don't think, you can't just clean that. That doesn't just get cleaned. Like, you could just, sweep it away and put it. That doesn't happen. And instead of trying to help as many people as possible with as many resources as possible, we sit there and bicker as if it's as if we can't give anybody the benefit of the doubt, as if these people are trying to swindle something. They're trying to put one over by wanting something. It's demented. It's demented. We live in a very demented place. For me, these people did not want this. This isn't it's crazy that this is treated like somehow the people of this town are just something that we could just placate. No, they need to be properly repaired as much as possible.
This obviously happened just over the weekend. The Department of Justice is suing Norfolk Southern. Not a surprise. It's usually a financial penalty that has to be paid to some degree over East Palestine derailment. Federal prosecutors want to ensure the railroad pays the full cost of the environmental cleanup rather than actually paying the full cost of repairing the actual train system, which is what needs to happen. But of course,
but we wouldn't want to nationalize the railroad.
Yeah, that would not be good for the bottom line.
No.
In the lawsuit unveiled Thursday, federal prosecutors accused the company of unlawfully polluting waterways with oil and hazardous substances from the derailed trains. The DOJ is seeking injunctive relief, cost recovery, and civil penalties to ensure it pays the full cost of the environmental cleanup. It does not accuse Norfolk Southern of negligence. And you know what? I don't need to read anything else from this Politico article. Does not accuse them of any negligence.
No, of course not.
Then what the hell is the point of a lawsuit?
It's a sternly worded letter.
What else could this possibly be, Jordan? Please, we would love your expertise on this one.
I mean, this is the government kind of checking the box to make it look like it's doing something. There's no criminal consequences for Norfolk Southern. There is a Department of Justice. You could do an investigation to see what warning signs were ignored by who in Norfolk Southern, because there were a lot of warning signs ignored. There seems to me that there's questions on Norfolk Southern's claims that it was the small town fire chief who decided to control burn these cars, which defies just logic. I don't believe a small town fire chief made the decision. I know that Norfolk Southern, as well as the owner of the chemicals that were on the cars, were in the room during these decision making. So you would think the company who owns the chemicals might have, a say in what happens, because you want to know what happens when you burn certain chemicals together and they combust, what other chemicals might be produced. But I think this is just the DOJ trying to make it seem that they're going for justice. But frankly, that's not going to help people now in East Palestine. These things they could take for over a decade until there's any money for the residents. And by that point, you got cancers. People, unfortunately, are probably already going to die. And when it's all tallied up, I'd be surprised if residents get what they really should get. In a normal country, we'd be immediately providing expanded health care for these residents. We don't have that. They have some sham medical. It's not even a medical clinic. It's a
GoFundMe.
No, it's a place that residents can go to get screened and then get referrals to other doctors. So it's just referrals to your private doctor, but you're still going to be paying for it through copays and all the rest of the rigmarole in the private healthcare industry. They're not getting, at least with Flint, they had to fight for it, but they got expanded Medicaid for a bit. That was only for people under 21. So if you're an adult in Flint, you were fucked.
We're screwed.
But important news, very important news.
We're cutting Medicaid everywhere now, right?
Look, I mean, President Biden said that not only would he not sign a Medicare for All bill, he'd veto it if it actually got to his desk. And he promised nothing would fundamentally change. Well, actually, something did fundamentally change. 15 million people were just thrown off of Medicaid today. So, he's doing stuff.
It's going to be a gradual thing, but that's what the number it'll get to after a period of time. Different states are phasing out at different points.
So for the people that are suffering in East Palestine, it doesn't look like they're going to be getting much help.
We're not talking about.
Isn't that ironic? Isn't that ironic and interesting that Democrats message that Republicans are depriving you in Florida and other places of Medicaid through Republican governors not signing on to the Obamacare Medicaid expansion, which, by the way, Obamacare is a boondoggle for the private health insurance industry.
That's right. I'm tired of hearing how good that is.
But the Democrats are now doing the same thing by depriving or taking Medicaid away from people. So if Republicans are depriving you of a Medicaid expansion through Obamacare, bad. Bums, and they are, that's bad, but the Democrats are now doing that. And it's just this was supposed to be temporary. Yeah, because the private health insurance industry doesn't want to pay for it, or the government, whoever's paying for it, they don't want to pay for it. And the Democrats just seem allergic to doing things that are popular and keeping those provisions in place.
Well, because it's not profitable. And here's another instance where if Bernie were president, I'm not saying that we would just automatically have had like Medicare for all, but there is absolutely no way that he wouldn't have taken advantage of the pandemic to get that in. And then once you have it in, it would have been much harder to get rid of it. I do think that. I do think he would have done, and there's no way he'd be sitting there talking about pulling it back when we were put out.
Just something as simple as the fact.
Well, I also don't think Bernie would be allowing, the bullshit stuff that has gone on with the CDC, with their bullshit mapping and their their changes of where, if like independent people do it, like it's a sea of red on the map, but when the CDC does it, like, oh, everything's fine. COVID's not a thing anymore. So you probably have a longer period of the technical emergency, which would then keep the funding for the healthcare.
And you also cannot underestimate the fact that there is a clause in the Social Security Act that allows for Medicare for all in parts of the country that have been completely contaminated and would be considered a natural disaster, or any type of a disaster, a health disaster, a crisis. East Palestine, Flint, Michigan, Jackson, Mississippi, these places qualify for universal health care. I know.
Honestly, Peter, most of the industrial Midwest would qualify.
Yeah,
because it's all contaminated.
Yeah. I mean, you have East St. Louis, you have Memphis. I mean, there's places all over this country.
All you have to do is put over the map over the country with the infrared as to where the highest cancer diagnoses are.
And it's
because I'm going to tell you what it is. It actually trails down the Mississippi.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, when you come out in places like Baton Rouge, like they have, I think, like the highest per capita. The stretch of land between New Orleans and Baton Rouge is horrible. And it makes sense. That's like the butthole of everything washes down through the Mississippi, but all those places are so toxified. Those places all would easily should qualify to have. We should all qualify, though.
How much longer do you think they're going to be able to get away with just allowing this country to just get systemically destroyed left and right? Everything is just going completely to hell, where you're going to have places, again, we have the problem here in Florida where, if you think you're getting any type of reasonable insurance rates anymore, it's not happening. Like, you're just going to have to accept the fact, no matter how many ways to Sunday you try to deny climate change, that we have a sea level rise crisis in the state, and the affordability, along with contaminated water and the ability to live healthy lives, as if there wasn't a problem to begin with, is now just getting worse, as it will be in a lot of other parts of the country. How much longer can people ignore these systemic problems before this country literally starts, losing their mind? And we think what happened in Nashville is an anomaly, or these shootings are an anomaly. This country is breaking apart, and people just don't care anymore.
Let's talk about the storms that I don't see enough coverage about. Like, are you guys covering that? I in all fairness, I haven't been like digging to find it, but I haven't really been seeing like stuff on it specifically. But I mean, we're talking a pretty high death toll over a period of, I don't know how many days and states. And I lived in Indiana for a while. And I remember the tornado sirens going off. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. And it's horrifying even if there's no tornado that touches down near you, just the thought that it might. So do you know like what's going on with that, Jordan? Like, because I'm sure they're not going to get the help that they need.
No. From what I could tell, I mean, I haven't been able to cover it that extensively because I'm working on 7 things at the time. From what I could tell, there is more storms. There's more tornadoes now. Some of them are going through places that generally don't have such severe tornadoes. So you got to wonder about that with the climate crisis. And yeah, I mean, the federal government is giving, with these tornadoes, hurricanes, you get a federal disaster declaration. I think the law is ridiculous because in East Palestine, for example, in Flint, you don't get a disaster declaration. A disaster declaration means FEMA comes in full bore. The Army Corps could come in. You get a lot more funding than just a state of emergency. But as far as I could tell, these folks that are the high death count and this and that, it's going to be the same thing we're dealing with in other places. They're going to have to go through a bureaucratic maze for their houses to be rebuilt, their communities to be rebuilt. Because that's what the neoliberal system is. It's not just straight point A to B. You got to go through a lot of different bureaucratic mechanisms to be made whole. But I agree, other than the initial coverage, because it's, alarming pictures and video, they're not covering that
Right. They
much.
like the shock value. I mean, look, if it bleeds, it leads. We know this. Like they like that. But the concept that's more scary, the more damaging aspect of all of this, and anybody post Katrina would know this, it's the aftermath. Because, yeah, the storm's scary and X amount of people died. But now we're talking about how many families are going to basically have their lives completely inside out. Who knows what happens with their employment, their whatever. And that goes on for, it could be generations, because when we saw it with Hurricane Andrew down here, the people that get hit the hardest, they don't have insurance. They don't have things where they ever really get made whole. So this is one of those things that affects generational wealth. Like this is a major thing that does, and nobody ever talks about that. And there is no safety net for these communities. And I mean, post Katrina was, one example. And granted, Brownie didn't do such a good job, but I feel like it's really kind of par for the course.
Well, that's the price of doing business in America. If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, or the wrong community at the wrong time, and a railroad blows up, or a tornado, or your water gets poisoned, whatever the case may be, yeah, we'll do a couple half measures, some Band-Aids, a lot of marketing and PR to make it seem like it's been that really generous, but you're kind of SOL, and it's generational trauma. Whatever the case may be, tornadoes, the railroad in East Palestine, because kids are forever damaged, which then damages, the next generation. But no, I mean, the media is failing in all this, and it kind of sickens me, because it's very cyclical, and essentially you have a media system that exists to basically just normalize all this. Same thing with the mass shootings. By leading and continually covering and hammering the horse race and elections, and it's all, and who's up and who's down, and I think the growing threat of fascism should be covered, but I think CNN, all these places have enough resources to stay on East Palestine, to stay on these tornadoes, to stay on, I mean, hell, Flint, it's 9 years this month, and it's still a fucking disaster. And I'm seeing it from the residents I talk to. They feel abandoned by the media. They're very grateful that we're still covering East Palestine, but they feel abandoned for the media. And when communities are forgotten, it breeds dissent, and it either makes people pull away from the political process or move towards extremist elements. Because East Palestine, for example, not only was Trump on the ground, Steve Bannon did a show from East Palestine.
Of course.
And right wingers are kind of jumping in there.
Well, we made it very clear that Trump gave the Dems an opening. He said, I'm going to East Palestine.
He gave them 5 days.
5 days. They had an opportunity to get somebody of note out there.
And it would still look lame, because they still were. And here's the thing, but this is exactly what we were talking about before as to why people follow somebody like a Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's the type of people that are just totally at a loss for how they are supposed to live their lives. And somebody comes along with the snake oil and they're going to buy it. And I think we see this historically over and over and over again. And it's unfortunate that it's like the left doesn't really care, and the right's just going to go in for the kill and take advantage. So it's, and when I say left, I mean our electoral process left. Yes. It's not really the left, but yeah.
And that is something that is very important, because, right now we're seeing obviously how effective the protests have been in France, but you compare it to the way things are here in the States. I mean, what do you think would help generate more of this sort of like,
I'm in it now.
This is a class war that we're in right now. And our good friend, Nina Turner, who we communicated with not too long ago, the most successful clip that we have put up on our channel was a clip that we did of her and Joy Behar. And the amount of positive comments that came in as a result for her response that she gave on CNN. And keep in mind, she hasn't been on CNN since that response. What a surprise.
It'll be a
basically
while.
Saying that, this is a class war. The people in East Palestine, even if they voted for Trump, are just as important as the people in Flint, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi. And the idea that this is even a debate, I mean, we have gotten thousands of messages, thousands of people who are probably as MAGA Republican as they can get, saying, man, that Nina Turner really is something. I really appreciate her putting it that way. It makes, I can definitely understand where she's coming from, instead of just telling us how terrible we are for voting for Trump. And she reiterated that point today when she went on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne, just basically saying the same thing, that we're going to keep pointing the finger at each other, saying that it's a red versus blue thing. It's not. This is the very mega rich and powerful controlling everything around us.
As if a train couldn't derail in a blue location.
Like if anybody
You
thinks,
stupid
yeah,
bitch.
like if anybody thinks that the reason that East Palestine is suffering right now is Donald Trump and not Norfolk Southern, like you're just not paying attention. That's not to say that Trump isn't bad or all of them are not bad. But
let's not forget the minor detail that the Democratic president blocked a railroad strike at the end of last year.
Right.
And I'm not God. Who knows? I don't think it would have necessarily stopped it. But one of the major things that they wanted to go on strike about was the bad trend of doing far more with less, hollowing out the workforce by 30% over the last decade, that they're running train cars that run for 2 to 3 miles with 2 workers on the train, that they are running rail car trains that some of the trains have not been upgraded or their brake systems changed since the Civil War era. And this is one of the major things that they wanted to go on strike for. And Biden, a fake ally of the unions, it makes me sick that the AFL-CIO, which has a lot of corruption problems, that they host Biden for speeches, and this myth of Biden, the friend of the union. But Biden blocked these workers from going on strike. So you can't do a straight line to what happened, but certainly is connected. And then you have, basically, we have lawmakers we've talked to. One state rep said her dealings with Norfolk Southern, she's a state rep in Pennsylvania. She said, they've controlled the government for 200 years. And by the way, I always say, don't always look for the direct line. So, for example, with the fossil fuel companies, it's not always the direct donations politicians get from oil companies, because Republicans get more direct donations from the oil companies than Democrats. Who is the largest investor in the fossil fuel industry? Wall Street. Who is heavily invested in the rail industry? Wall Street. Who is the largest owner of the railroad in America? No, Warren Buffett. Who gets a lot of money from Warren Buffett? Democratic Party. So it's all one incestuous cesspool. And
what?
He
points at me when you say incestuous cesspool. I'm not exactly
because he's basically said the same thing many a times before. It's like this idea that Wasserman Schultz does not take, she was so adamant about how I would never take any money from the NRA money. And it's like, who cares? You take money from every other major corporate corrupt industry. So you might as well take money from them anyway.
Right. It doesn't matter who.
You're not doing anything that is making you.
I think on Peter's headstone in 60 years, it's going to say, Debbie said, ... Yeah.
But it's interesting because so many things that we talk about national, we see it as such a microcosm here in Broward locally, with her being sort of like the ringleader. When you talk about
I heard Debbie Wasserman Schultz's district has changed a bit. So
it has changed quite a bit, but she feels the need to interject herself locally in ways that no other congressperson does. It's really very telling.
Oh, right. Debbie's just the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, Taibbi came on the podcast right after and probably wasn't, he knew that Jen ran against her, but this was like his opportunity to basically just like come on and, kind of just like let it all hang out. And sure enough, we got our most popular clip we've done since we started the show. And it basically was all about the fact that Debbie is the biggest in the year of 2022, which just concluded. Not many people know, but Debbie is the #1 insider trader in the Democratic Party because Unusual Whales, as you know, puts out all this wonderful information about how our congressional representatives like to trade stocks.
She was number 2 overall.
Number 2 overall. This one guy, I think Fallon was his name. He's on the GOP side. But it's like Debbie's all the way up there in the blue, and then you got like several red, and you're thinking, well, what's the difference? Doesn't matter.
But she doesn't take NRA money, Jordan. So that should make everybody feel better.
Yeah. And as we said, even if you have issue with what Taibbi did with his, doing what he did with Musk, could you pick anybody but Debbie Wasserman Schultz to basically share your benevolence about how this is such a bad thing? It's like,
she's talking about ethics.
yeah, ethics. Speaking of ethics, and I know you have a limited amount of time. It's, you got baby duty, you got all those wonderful things.
Baby.
So we're going to do one more story. Obviously, I'm sure you know what it is. We know what tomorrow is. Tomorrow's the big day.
Oh, please tell me you're doing a running live stream as Trump.
I probably shouldn't I? Actually, I should probably just bring him on now as we talk about our wonderful story.
All right.
Because I think, is this the best story? NBC always does like these, like really, okay.
I think I just saw something that was a Lindsey Graham quote, and I found myself agreeing with it. Yeah, but it looked like something I agree with. That's like,
what'd you see?
It said something about Lindsey Graham says that a Trump indictment will likely make him the GOP nominee. I saw something like that.
Yeah, it's
somewhere.
probably like that here. Okay, so
anyway, I'm like, yeah, that's what
I told Peter this when he was trying to tell me Ron DeSantis had a chance, but
I didn't. I mean, look,
no,
did
and
we
he
really
still
think that
does.
this was potentially? He still does. I mean, it's still a year out, but I would definitely say that in accordance with what they're planning to do now, and I do believe that a lot of this is intentional, that by indicting Trump, you're basically handing him, like a firecracker that he hasn't had since 2016,
he
2018.
loves the media. Well, it's free media, and it's constant, and it's what he had last time. Like, it works. And nobody cares that it's negative.
I just got back to New York, and I have to tell you, the people of New York, they're really great people. It's great to be back at Trump Tower. I know you're going to be covering my story tomorrow, but I just want to let everybody know I'm going to be fine. They're not going to do anything rash. I totally have this under control.
You look like a rash.
Look, listen, I look really great. What are you talking about? You know how I know I look great?
No.
Because the polls look great. The polls look incredible. Ron de Meatball Sanctimony is totally losing it right now. He has no opportunity. He'd be a total fool to get in this race, believe me when I tell you. I totally am going to win the nomination, and Sleepy Joe will be put out to pasture, and we will make America great again.
Again.
In 24. We're coming back. We're coming back.
We totally agree that Sleepy Joe is going out to pasture. That we agree on.
No, and he's totally destroying this country from the inside.
Yeah, because you did such a
because I did a really great job. I said that I would never cut Medicare or Medicaid or any of those other wonderful
You didn't start
programs.
any wars,
No, that's true, but I totally have a wonderful drone program, so we only kill the bad people, not the innocent people.
I still think Obama takes the record on the drone kills.
Obama is a really terrible person. He kept saying that I was a bad president. Believe me when I tell you, he's never experienced what I've experienced. I am a really, really oppressed individual. Obama could never, ever claim he's gone through what I've gone through.
Okay.
I'm a totally, totally oppressed person.
And so are you going to talk about this indictment, and are you going to...
This is a totally phony, terrible indictment. I would never stoop to the level of actually getting in bed with that trashy star of porn, Stormy Sloppy Daniels. She's a really terrible person.
Only I could run a slideshow of all the women that you've hooked up with.
I have really great taste in women, believe me. Much better than Mr. Clinton's, I must say.
Well, that is true.
No, I totally do. And believe me, I can do so much better than Stormy. She just couldn't handle rejection, so now she's suing me. What a terrible person. Am I right, Jordan? Tell me I'm right. I'm totally right about this.
I'm not... I just think it's good practice. Nobody in the media would care to follow this, but nobody knows what's actually in the indictment. So there might be stuff in there that we're actually surprised by. Assuming it's what we think it is, which is just, Trump did some shady accounting to hide payoffs to multiple women, not just Stormy Daniels. I think it's... I'm okay with it only because I think a lesser person would be charged if he, used campaign funds or things like that. To me, I don't really focus on this case as much because it's small ball compared to what I actually think potentially he could be convicted for, which a lot of people don't believe Donald Trump could be convicted. I think he would off himself before going to jail. But I actually think Donald Trump could be convicted over the classified documents case. There was more information that came out about that over the weekend, but kind of got swept under the rug with this.
There was like interference, right? I saw something about that there was an interference at Mar-a-Lago.
Basically Trump himself going through the boxes. Donald himself going through the boxes after being subpoenaed and kind of sorting through, taking some stuff out, keeping moving, because in American history, we know that if you piss off the CIA, if you piss off the FBI, you piss off the generals, they hold a grudge, and it could be fatal. And I think the fact that, by all accounts, because the DOJ has been leaking stuff to the New York Times, the Washington Post, he had documents about nuclear programs. He had documents about human sources, i.e. spies. And there was an increase in the deaths of spies abroad in this same period. To me, that's a pretty cut and dry case. I don't know what Trump's defense can be, because you can't like wave a wand and say it's privilege when I haven't been president for a year. But on this tomorrow, it absolutely martyrs him. It absolutely, will jack his approval ratings and polling better. It seems that DeSantis, in a controlled environment where he controls the media in Florida, does very well and uses his bully pulpit. But outside of that, he's afraid to punch Trump in the face, which is the only way you're going to beat Trump. He's afraid to even mention Donald Trump by name, because he's deathly afraid of losing Trump's base. But you're going to have to take Trump's base. And the only way you could do that is by being as aggressive, as fierce, as over the top, and as charismatic as Trump, because that's what they're going for. It's the WWF aspect of it.
I think he's hoping that they'll find a way to keep him from running. And again, he still hasn't even announced that he's in the race.
Believe me when I tell you, I can run from anywhere. I'll run from the cops. I'll run in jail. I'll run all the way to the White House.
Hillary's running
really
too,
fast.
running to Columbia.
The fact that Columbia hired that really terrible person. Hillary can only get hired by a crooked university. The system's broken.
You mean like Trump University?
That's a really great university. It was just totally misunderstood. But believe me when I tell you, we are coming back. We're making America great again. In 24. See you at the news. The press. The indictment tomorrow.
Big
whatever
indictment.
You want to call it. Great to see you all.
But the interesting thing, Donald, is it's possible that a judge issues a gag order on him tomorrow to not talk about this. And he's already set up this press conference at Mar-a-Lago at night. So I think Trump, listen, he's kind of trying to make up for lost time being banned from Twitter, even though technically he's allowed back on Twitter now. So he's just trying to suck in that media attention. I think he loves this martyrdom aspect of it all. And I think he's trying to set the table that this is a political witch hunt like everything else, so that like the real heavy cases like classified documents, if he's charged for the Georgia stuff with the election, then it's just continuing that bubble of this is all the deep state and Soros and, nonsense. But it should be interesting because Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be leading a little pep rally in the city tomorrow. I believe there should be a good flock of Trump people out there. Hopefully it stays, peaceful and not violent. But it will be. It definitely will be popcorn worthy.
Yeah, and
let's just say, by the way, how dramatically things change over 20-something years. I mean, the Republican Party wanted to impeach Bill Clinton over a blowjob. There was plenty of things to impeach Bill Clinton on legitimately. That I don't think was one of them. But now it's like, it's just an accounting thing paying off the porn star. Who cares?
Again, it's like the violation of the Emoluments Clause. It's the most obvious crime that he committed as president. He's had, he
was impeached twice.
Again,
it's not like he wasn't impeached. It's just that doesn't mean anything because it doesn't mean anything.
You can argue that basically Joe Biden has had Hunter do ostensibly the same thing that Trump has been having Jared Kushner do for the past several years, which is just act as a proxy for these illicit deals that they do, which basically means that there's a reason why those cases never get tried. Because that is the rot of the system.
Jared Kushner's a whole hell of a lot smarter than Hunter Biden.
He certainly is. And Jared Kushner's father went to federal prison for very similar crimes. So the fact that they've been able to get away with this is crazy. We'll just touch on real quick what to know about Trump's indictment. Former President Donald Trump is expected to be arraigned on about 30 charges in New York tomorrow. The indictment remains sealed, so the exact charges are still unknown. They're expected to be related to hush money payments made ahead of the 2016 election to two women who claimed to have had affairs with Trump. He has denied the affairs and any wrongdoing. Trump was indicted last week by a Manhattan grand jury convened by District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Trump is the first former president to have been impeached twice and the first to be criminally indicted. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia plans to host a protest with Trump supporters in New York at 10:30 tomorrow morning. So there you go.
Look, I think when people do things that are wrong, they should be held accountable. I do. I think that. But there's things that we all sort of rank in our head from bad to worse, you know, like in terms of what is more reprehensible. And to me, they always go after people for things that I don't give a shit. Like there are so many horrible things that are going on that are happening, like war crimes and people drinking toxic water and things that are really fun. Like that's the stuff I care about, and the corruption surrounding those things, because that's what affects regular people, or killing regular people in places like Yemen or whatever. That I care about. The porn star being paid off by his doesn't even register as remotely important to me. So I get it. You got to go after him because it's illegal. But it's infuriating when you think about the past 4 administrations.
Well, it really comes down to there might be something in there that we don't know. That could be beyond Stormy Daniels. Donald Trump, I mean, Peter, you're from the Northeast. You got 40 years of Donald Trump and his father committing crimes. So I don't know if there's something more recent in there. And by the way, the Southern District was communicating with a New York Attorney General, Letitia James, and they were kind of working together. So there might be more than we know. And it might be, not to go in the weeds, but essentially the district attorney that was leaving didn't want to charge Trump, and Bragg, the current one, when he came in, there was pressure on him to charge Trump, and he chose not to for a while. And I think it's because he felt just on Stormy Daniels wasn't enough. So I think they worked. I could be wrong, and it might just be. But I think there's going to be more in there. I don't think it rises to the level of jacking, the nuclear codes or nuclear documents from the White House. But I also think at the end of the day, we need to stop normalizing corruption. So even if it's a mundane, run-of-the-mill violation, politicians shouldn't get special preferences. And I think we need to retroactively go back after this.
That's the thing.
And George W. and Dick and Obama and Joe and Hillary, because I would have been in jail if I had a private server as a government official and was emailing.
Oh.
I mean, Hillary Clinton committed some of the most egregious crimes. And, the first day that she teaches there, you should cover that, because there probably will be protesting going on outside of Columbia University. When people were thinking about whether or not you're really inside, Trump is part of the elite class, but he's not in the club, if you will. He's not part of the he doesn't
No, because he's uncouth.
Yeah, he's not sophisticated. He's
no.
not,
he's Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School.
Hey, what are you talking about here?
Well, he was in the club until he decided to market himself as a populist outsider.
Right.
I mean, he remember the pictures, him, Bill, Hillary at the wedding.
Epstein.
That never happened. You can't even prove it.
Yeah, you were on the island, Bill.
No, you were totally on the island, but I wasn't on that island. Only you.
I don't know if Trump was on the island, but Bill was definitely. There's no way he was on that plane.
Whatever the activity is that they were up to, it is clearly activity that are for people that are not part of normal society, that can't, the rules.
Oh, there's pedophiles in normal society.
And that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that there are laws for thee and not for ye. And so that, unfortunately, is a byproduct of what we're living through.
Unless you have dirt on the Clintons and then you get Arkancided.
I think you should stop saying that. And it's just not good for you.
I think it's fine for me.
No, it's not.
We could agree to disagree.
But nevertheless, you have all of these lingering issues that are now going to come to the surface. Like, well, if Trump is going to be prosecuted for this, why aren't the Clintons prosecuted for things that they've done? Why is George W. Bush not prosecuted for the obvious war crimes that he and Dick Cheney did?
What about Obama's drones? There's some crazy stuff that's gone on here.
I'm sure George H.W. Bush, Ronald Reagan. Listen.
Senior was probably one of the least offensive ones.
There's especially since Clinton, there has been such a litany of crimes that has been committed in the White House that they're just willing to cast aside as just a means of doing business, which is just unacceptable. So when somebody like Wasserman Schultz does her thing with Matt Taibbi, when Nancy Pelosi comes out and says, justice will be done with Donald Trump, it's like all of these people need to be brought to justice. I am totally fine with Trump being prosecuted, but if you're going to prosecute him, you got to get them all.
I think it just
Oh,
helps.
get Nancy on. I mean, Nancy's done more insider trading than most Wall Street people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
She's smart about it, though. She doesn't do it in her name the same. Debbie's pretty brazen. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, Nancy Pelosi, it's like, I think who knows what kind of shells they use and what they do. I don't know, but she's definitely not as brazen.
The GOP U.S. Senator from North Carolina, whose name, I mean, I don't even think he's in office anymore, but he was literally caught red-handed.
Richard Burr.
Yeah, Burr, dumping stock prior to the pandemic, fully kicking in because he knew that he was fully invested in certain companies that were going to take a massive stock hit. And of course, that's inside information. Same with the lady who was basically given that Senate seat in Georgia, and she ultimately lost it to Ossoff. And, you know, at some point you have to say that this, or was it, no, she was the lady that, the other senator's name in Georgia? Warnock. That Warnock was able to beat. But that type of stuff it's got to die. Like, enough people are through with this, as they should be. So maybe Trump's prosecution in a way is a good thing, because it's ultimately going to open up the floodgates, because enough people are now going to have a tit for tat type of thing saying, all right, fine. You want to prosecute Trump? Fine. But we are going to bring charges against Hillary Clinton.
This is why I've always been suspect when they've threatened to go after him criminally as to how far it will actually go, because that's always been the case. This is why Obama didn't go after W. This is why Trump didn't go after Obama. This is the game, because they know that once you start peeling that back, it just goes all the way. And so this is why I've always been skeptical, and remains to be seen. We'll see what happens tomorrow, how this unfolds. But my prediction, based on my life experience, is that it ultimately ends up nowhere real, with no real consequences. I mean, there could be on paper financial consequences like that, but nothing really. And all it will do will be boost him and his name and martyr him. And that's what they're going to end up with, because I don't think that they're going to really do it because of what you were just saying. And that's always been what's held them up. That's why they haven't ever done it before. Because why wouldn't Obama go after W for war crimes?
The fact that it's gotten to this point, though, they're very close to the point of no return, and maybe that's a good thing. You know, we always heard from Michael Moore saying that Trump is the human Molotov cocktail that people have been waiting for, and he's going to do it. If people thought that he was a wild card in 2015 and 2016, now all bets are off, especially if he has any shot at getting back in there again. I mean, he has an axe to grind, and he has 0 F's to give at this point.
Which, how many people in the country relate to that?
A lot more than those who don't.
But that's the thing. And then you see this sort of sanctimonious, elitist sort of, Democrat type of perspective. And people are so turned off by that, yeah, they're ready to that's it. We're going down with the ship. We're going to pull off that Band-Aid.
And the more that we witness Biden basically proving that neoliberalism is the bane of our existence, and almost everything he does is not good, not bad. It's terrible.
He basically has screwed labor and the environment within the past 2 months.
And when you see these people coming out, I mean, listen, we've talked about this. We don't even have to talk about her, but seeing people lose their ish just by the thought of him being primaried by somebody who has no serious financial power. Just the idea of him even being challenged is throwing these people into a complete tizzy.
And yet he hasn't announced he's running again.
And apparently he delayed it again. Honestly, at this point, the Democrats get what they deserve in the fact that people are not willing to step up to this president. I don't know what the hell they're afraid of. Let's just end on that note, Jordan. I'd really like to get your thought on why do you think people are so afraid to challenge the power structure within the Democratic Party? What are they so afraid of?
They are afraid of their basically cocktail crowd invitation being taken away for the next 10 years. They're afraid of losing their career prospects because it's one big club and they're not in it if you go against Biden. Hell, Nina Turner, ask her what happened when she switched. She didn't officially endorse Hillary Clinton, but when she kind of reneged on endorsing Hillary Clinton in 2015 to switching to Bernie Sanders. I mean, Nina Turner, if she would have been a good little soldier, she could have become a congressperson from Ohio, possibly greater, if she would have stayed in that kind of establishment lane, supported Hillary Clinton in Ohio. So people are afraid to, because the machine is so big, both on the Democratic and Republican side, and it's all the ornaments on the tree, Wall Street, Big Pharma, this and that, that you're up against 100 Goliaths, you know? But Bernie showed you, and some others have shown you, that there's more of us than them. It's just there has been very few people that are willing to go all the way. Whatever you think of Marianne Williams's chances, I think it's a good thing that somebody's challenging Biden. I hope more people do, because I think Marianne, if she gets on a debate stage with Biden, I think it would be very illuminating to show the difference between an old, out to pasture, frankly, Republican.
They're never letting that happen. That's never going to happen.
I don't think so. But look, they're throwing their hands ecstatic that like Asa Hutchinson has jumped into the Republican primary, and they're saying Chris Christie might, but Marianne Williamson just broke 10%. It's not nothing. I don't think she's going to win, but 10% is not nothing on a poll, and barely any media coverage of it.
Right.
I think if Marianne got to 25% by July, August, I could see the argument being made for somebody else getting in, and somebody else might get in. The only person that I've seen to this point that would have the ability to really create any type of momentum is because he's good on the stump and he's worth billions of dollars is Governor Pritzker in Illinois. Everybody else who's out there is a complete disaster, starting with Kamala, next being Pete, and don't even get me started on Gavin Newsom.
Newsom.
You know, but those, of course, are the choices, along with maybe an Amy Klobuchar again, that they're going to try to shove down.
It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Don't sleep on Mark Cuban as an independent.
Okay, you just got Jen excited.
Let me explain.
I can't. I got to go for my kid, but I do think there's a chance Mark Cuban jumps in as an independent if it's Biden Trump, and I think enough people might be seduced by like the competent, not lunatic billionaire.
I think I would be, actually.
For all the people that have been trashing Andrew Yang, just remember he's the one person who may have an infrastructure to get ballot access to 50 states, and somebody like a Mark Cuban, or even, dare I say, Jesse Ventura would be willing to run on that ticket. And let me tell you, there'd be a hell of a lot of interest. Just the fact that you'd be able to vote for a legitimate
third
candidate outside of the two-party system,
do well.
There would be a lot of interest in
now
that.
There would.
A lot.
Absolutely.
So how can people find you? I know that's a silly question.
It's Jordan. He's on Status Coup News. You should be a member.
Status Coup, COUP on YouTube. They finally kind of took the knee off us for a little bit. So fortunately, we've grown the last month or two. At Status Coup on Twitter. And if you want to support our on-the-ground reporting, we're going back to East Palestine later this month. I'm going back to Flint. It's now 9 years. We're turning that anniversary. I'm also going to go to Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is being poisoned out of a paper mill that is emitting toxic gas, and people are dying in Kalamazoo. The poor black part of Kalamazoo, of course. But now it's actually shifting to the white neighborhoods. So now all of a sudden people care. So support our reporting at statuscoup.com/join. And thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks for coming, Jordan.
If you ever need Mr. Trump to make an appearance on the podcast, just let me know.
Thank you, Jordan. Yeah, Mark Cuban to me is definitely an anomaly, and and I have thoughts on that. You guys know that I just need just a few minutes of his time, and then although if he's running for president, that's less likely. But when you had sent me that post from Andrew, is that
That's
real?
a joke. It was April Fool's, and I didn't
Fools.
realize that's my fault. And even I have never had on April Fool's, but for some reason that one got me.
Okay,
I don't know why.
So that was April Fool's. But the Mark Cuban thing would be pretty good. I could get with that.
Yeah.
I really could. I could get with that. And I would definitely get with that over Trump or Joe. And that's just a fact.
Well, I think a lot of people are looking for something. it's not going to be like every other election. People are not just going to, well, forget Biden. I mean, people are not just going to fall in line. They are definitely, yes, we definitely share that sentiment, Carla.
The best we're going to get at this point, people, is a benevolent oligarch.
Yeah, that's kind of what you should be
I mean,
probably hoping for.
But I will say this is something why I really like him, or seemingly. I mean, I don't know him personally, so this is always just based on what I've seen. But he does seem to value things other than just profit. He does seem to have priorities that are not just profit. And so that is, I find, amongst his peers, fairly unusual. And his philanthropy isn't seemingly bogus and silly to me. It's seemingly coming from a real place. And I also think that has to do with where he does come from. But, you know, he's self-made.
He is.
And I think
he was in the right place at the right time.
Whatever it is. And again, I'm not saying anybody's entitled to that amount of money, because I don't think that. But it's different than somebody being born with a silver spoon in their mouth and having it handed to them. And I just think his perspective is, I don't know, different for people in that level of wealth.
I do, and I think it's very easy for him not to, again, he's at a level of such influence and such power that he doesn't have to care.
No.
And he chooses to, which is very powerful considering, and I don't know how much of an influence this actually is on him, but he happens to share a stage with one of the worst capitalists this country has, and that, of course, is Kevin O'Leary, who says some of the... Well, Kevin O'Leary wishes he was that wealthy, but he espouses the type of talking points that the likes of a Jeff Bezos or a Warren Buffett... And
he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
He really was.
Disgusting. He's disgusting. Like, I wonder if, like, Mark Cuban wants to, like, there have to be things that go through his head about wanting to punch that guy in the face. Like, I cannot imagine. Not to mention he could buy and sell him. But I think that I watch him. I do like to watch Shark Tank. I will say that. And I've been watching him for years, and I find that he tends to value things other than...
He wants to help people.
Yeah.
You can tell.
And yet he's not going to lose money, you know? I mean, I don't, but he does seem to value things other than profit. And he looks at opportunities as also, how can he help? And I just, Mark, I'm telling you, I have got some seriously good projects in mind. I think, first of all, I think he could be running like a really decent independent media situation that would be very helpful to the independent left in getting publicity. And I also think he could be very helpful in my little personal project that I'm working on, but we shall see.
Yeah.
But I am a fan.
I'm trying to find a clip right now of our good friend Nina Turner, who was on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God the other day, basically reiterating the talking point of what we have been very clear on, and that is, this is a class war. This is not a left versus right or red versus blue nonsense.
And both sides are completely taking advantage of the class war to benefit themselves financially and politically. Both sides are doing it, whether it's by the culture stuff, the red flag like issues that they're the wedge issues that they focus on and that they use for fundraising purposes, and that they are doing that to keep us not paying attention to this.
Yeah.
It's a class war.
But just as Nina said, and we're going to put this clip up real quick, because again, she was on the Breakfast Club the other day. We're huge champions of Nina Turner.
Yeah.
But aren't we all sick and tired of being sick and tired?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just don't know what to do.
I'm over it. We need a general strike in this country. But aren't we all sick and tired?
That's why we love her.
We're like on the same page. We're on the same page. I got my strike.
And as Jen likes to say, you can't convince the working class to join you for a fight of a lifetime in a Prada suit. Somebody like Nina absolutely can do it, but the choice to go for a second time in that congressional race really hurt her.
I think that we need to accept that 24, we need to work on down ballot races.
Yes.
We need to work on building the bench, even in non-partisan races. And I think a big part of what we should be doing is getting behind Shama Sawant's project and really focusing on labor and any way we can integrate them into any sort of the political process where they're not like, and I'm not talking about the management of the AFL-CIO.
Yes, I do think somebody like Cuban would be better for Biden, because I don't see Cuban doing the things that Biden has done. Biden has been terrible for labor.
Horrible.
terrible.
Now that it's being based on empirical evidence.
He's Reagan-esque when it comes to labor.
Horrible. And I also don't know how much of Joe is really there anyway. And I really don't have those doubts when I think about Mark Cuban. So I'm just saying.
I just think the country would just feel invigorated with somebody who attempted to do something. I mean, think of it this way.
Different.
I mean, Guy, it's 30 years. It's 30 years since Ross Perot tried to do what he did, and Ross Perot was a crazy billionaire.
Yeah, no, Cuban would not be worth
Cuban
labor.
is a
I really don't think
sharp
so.
Guy.
I don't think so. I do think that he does want to help because he wouldn't.
And think of it this way, Guy. Somebody like Mark Cuban doesn't start a company like Cost Plus Drugs unless he truly cares about people not being able to afford medicine or being able to have health.
It's not a moneymaker.
Now, through social media, Jen has not been able to convince Mark to get behind Medicare for all, but if he did, it's not like he's that far away from it. The fact that he's willing to do what he's done already.
I don't need people to agree with me on everything. I don't need people to do everything I want them to do. I just need people to listen to common sense reason, not have to be the smartest
Carla,
person in the room. Carla, that's so sweet. Oh my God, I love your poochies.
Yes. What kind of dogs are they anyway?
They look kind of mixed. They're mixed of things.
Carla, please tell us what kind of dogs
you're a little
you have.
woofus. So I actually do think that Mark Cuban would bring on different types of people and get different perspective. And he comes from working class background. So I don't think he is like, Joe is so far gone and the Democratic Party is so far entrenched with interests that are just so filthy and nefarious and corrupt. This is why things like companies like Norfolk Southern get to do what they do. That's why this gets to happen over and over and over again. And no, I don't think Mark Cuban would necessarily roll over for a company like that.
If you are so inclined to be you don't have to be as generous as Carla, although we would love it and appreciate it. Please go to patreon.com/generational change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a wonderful supporter of our channel. We are giving away the Lulu sticker for every $5 contributor. But for those who are considerably more generous and want to go to $10 a month,
you will get the Lulu sticker and the Mansion Parliamentarian bumper sticker.
I mean, we still think this is the most likely shot.
That is the strongest candidate in the Democratic Party.
Right now, anyway.
If you can't get anything done because of those two, then that's who we should put in charge.
It certainly seems that way.
Yeah.
And that's another thing about President Biden. Don't forget, he blamed the parliamentarian for not being able to get a $15 minimum wage in the CARES package? Whatever stimulus package it was there was.
Well, one of the packages was the problem was Mansion and Cinema. And then the other one, the problem was the parliamentarian. So I think we need to combine forces.
Carla says they are both chow mixes. They are very, very cute. Very, very cute.
They're very cute.
But probably a lot of hair.
Oh, they look, that's a lot of fur.
Lots of combing.
You must have a Roomba. Carla, do you have a Roomba?
If you are so inclined and are really feeling generous, I will not say who, but one of our contributors in the chat this evening happens to be one of our $25 a month contributors. You get the wonderful Generational Change Tri-Blend Silky Smooth Jersey. You know you want one.
Karina Cunningham wonders, didn't Trump fire the parliamentarian to pass the... I don't know, but that is something that would be possible. The fact that a non-elected position can hold up the whole thing is insane.
You're totally fired.
I'm sorry. I understand we need to follow procedures. You need to have a parliamentarian. And I've actually seen very, very competent parliamentarian once. It was very interesting because I hadn't before. Usually it's just the name.
Was a competent parliamentarian.
I've never watched him do his thing, but I watched the woman who did the state convention for the League of Women Voters, the state of Florida, the state parliamentarian for the League. She knows her. Let me tell you something. That is, if the League of Women Voters ran Congress and how that shit happened, we'd be in an infinitely better place.
Karina's absolutely right. It's easy to blame anyone to avoid trying to do anything. Of course, because there's always an opportunity to not do something when it is in your financial interest not to do that. But of course, if you don't want to put your credit card on the grid, you can go to Cash App, $GenChange.
And here's the thing, Guy. We survived Donald Trump. And now we just saw that Joe Biden not only wasn't any better, but just has done some really horrible things. So when you say, why would I support someone like Mark Cuban? Why not? At this point, really, why not? I mean, seriously.
And here's the bottom line. We needed a president after Donald Trump to radically change the economic infrastructure to the populist left, which was absolutely necessary. And what we've gotten in many ways is Obama 2.0, and it's even worse. There are people who I will not name who have been suggesting that President Biden is the most progressive president we've had ever in our lifetime. I will not even dignify that because there's too much empirical evidence that says that it's simply not true. I don't have to get upset. I don't have to defend it.
I
just
don't know how anybody can get upset because I don't know how anybody can take that seriously. That is silly.
And if he was this super successful president
so progressive
that everybody is so enamored with and so loves and is doing such a great job, then 2 out of 3 Democrats would not be asking him not to run again. I'm just saying, it's just a thought.
Progressive. That's just so funny to me. He's the most progressive president.
Important bit of news before we go.
Yes.
There has been a major change in our local state committee chair race. Our friend Andy Mattis of the Teamsters Union, unfortunately, is not running anymore. It is a family matter. However, our friend Ted Victor, who is one of the most jovial, great people.
He's a good guy.
In local politics. He is running for the state committee chair, and we are absolutely supporting him. The election is next Saturday, so it's going to be 12 days from now. This is very important in determining what the future of the South Florida Democratic Party is going to look like.
And our congresswoman really felt the need to get involved in this.
Not a smart decision. So now, of course, we were going to support Ted anyway, but this is just going to increase our involvement.
Yeah, I mean, I would have supported Ted anyway, but yeah.
Well, fair enough. But Guy, we love you. We appreciate your feedback. Karina, Doug, Mario.
Thank you, guys.
Carla with the super generous contribution.
It's really
Tony, great to see you. Obviously, Virgo, every one of you guys who's got Travers with his salty, dry humor.
He's over in the UK.
We love it.
He's in the UK.
Yeah, we came out at a good time for him today. Yeah. Doug, always a pleasure. For everybody that came on the podcast tonight,
I love the people across the pond.
Yes, we have a small but mighty channel, but a channel that is growing. We have a channel that has now grown to 12,300 subscribers.
Ooh, guys, it's been so exponential the past few days. And also, don't forget, we've also started a new show on our channel Thursday nights, 9 o'clock, the Gen Z Report. And we're still finding our way in the best way to do format. Like it's going to be like kind of like work as we go. But the key thing is for us to really understand what we need to do with that generation in terms of how to best make things happen, because we can't do it without them. And I feel like in so many places we've seen it where the people that are my age, and definitely we hear it about boomers, whatever, they just talk over them and talk down to them. They're not including them. The Democrats are definitely not speaking to them locally here at all. And it's a huge problem. So I think that we need to be really talking about Gen Z. They're not stupid. They're not lazy. They're just, they're not falling for the same song and dance anymore.
As they should not be. It's time.
They're not pliant. They're not compliant.
Change. Smash that like button, subscribe.
What do we have coming up?
Comment. We do not have Wednesday figured out yet, but we're working on it.
It'll be another something fun. We're always fun here.
We're always fun. Jordan came in at the last minute.
Wait, you have? Oh, that's next week.
Yeah,
never mind.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was supposed to come on today.
She rescheduled
to postpone. Obviously, we know all the crazy stuff that's going on the Hill right now, but we are rescheduled for next Monday. So check out our most recent clips. Comment on the videos if you can. Check out our shorts. Big Dumb Animal, $4.99.
Big Dumb Animal. It's always weird when it's like when people have names that I feel like it's rude. Big Dumb Animal, like that just doesn't seem like
big dumb animal.
It
I love you.
doesn't seem like a nice thing to say. No. Some people's names are so fun. Like mine's so boring. My name's just Jen Perlman.
Just Jen.
Just Jen. Just Jen.
Thank you guys for everything. It really means the world. You are what makes this channel possible, the growth possible. We never forget the ones that have been with us for a long time. You guys have been awesome. Stay awesome, and we'll see you Wednesday.